Welcome to the I Am Restor'd podcast. I am Miss Leslie, and I'm so glad that you chose to join me today. This topic today is near and dear to my heart because it is a true story. While I was battling for my identity, I found my purpose. And we're going to talk a little bit about my struggles, and we're going to talk a little bit about the character in the Bible from Judges 6, Gideon, and his struggle and how he fulfilled his purpose and made it through. But before we get into our topic tonight, I want you to find me on social media. You can find me at I Am Miss Leslie on Twitter and Instagram. On Facebook, you can find me at I Am Miss Leslie, and at YouTube, you can find me at I Am Miss Leslie. And I'm so glad that you're going to connect with me, and we're going to start a dialogue, and you're going to let me know where you are, how you feel about the topic that we're talking about tonight. So the story kind of starts with me being in a huge transition. I was just ending a 9-year relationship with my high school college sweetheart, and I was graduating from college, and I was moving to a new city to take my first real job. And so basically I was just going through a huge transition, and the things that I identified myself as had stopped existing. For instance, I identified myself as a girlfriend, a future wife, a fiance. That relationship was over. What am I now? Who am I now? I had been a student for 4 to 5 years. Not to mention, we're not even talking about high school and elementary school. We're just talking about college here. And that was ended. What do I do now? I'm starting a new job as an adult, as a, independent, on my own, away from my mother. What do I do now? How do I navigate that? And it was such a strong turn of events, and partly was unexpected. Up until this point, I just knew that I was going to get married, have 3 kids and a dog, and live happily ever after as a stay-at-home mom. That was my intention. That is what I thought my purpose was going to be, to raise godly children in the fear of the Lord and take care of my husband. That was all I wanted. That was what I thought was going to happen. And when my relationship ended, which I ended the relationship, and I'll explain to you why I ended the relationship, but nothing he didn't do anything wrong. He wasn't crazy or abusive or anything else. But there came a point where I wanted to do more and get more and have more. And I'm not talking about more money or more substance or more stuff, because we could have did that together, but I wanted more as an individual. I knew that God had something out there that was just for me to experience. And it was a risk because here I am with this relationship, and what I have on the other side is complete uncertainty. And how many times do we find ourselves with a choice to make? Do I choose the safe route or do I take the risk? And, it's a tough decision. Do I take the safe route? Do I accept what I have right now? Or do I take the risk to follow God and see what else is out there? And not, I wasn't looking for another relationship or anything like that, but I wanted to see who I was. Now that all of this has stopped, now that everything was stopped and I was standing here, who am I? Who am I? And so, I stopped going to church and I stopped doing all the things that I used to do, and I just started over. I started my new job. I started without my relationship and started just moving forward and started fresh with my relationship with God, and just started building a new relationship with him, a new experience with him. And it was, simply amazing, but I yet hadn't found, my niche or my place or my purpose in life. I was still just, trying to figure this thing out. And, God will find you wherever you are. He already knows where you are, but I'm talking about that interaction between, where you are and where he is, and you finding that apex, that point where you and God collide. And he will always find you wherever you are. It doesn't matter where you are. So when I think about my story and I think about life, I also think about the story of Gideon and his encounter with an angel of the Lord and where he was. So if you're not familiar with the story of Gideon, it's really a great story. It goes from Judges 6 to I think Judges 8. But at the very beginning of the story, the Israelites are in a tough situation. They disobeyed God and found themselves again in an oppressive situation. They again found themselves in a situation that wasn't in their best interest. But God still had a promise. He made them a promise. So even if you find yourself outside of the will of God, know that God still has a purpose for you and he still has a plan for you and he still wants to get you to where he promised you would be. And I just love the story of how God has loved on his people from the beginning. So here we have Gideon, who the children of Israel are all afraid of this enemy that they have, and they're terrified of the enemy. And every time they grow, every time they get something, every time they grow a crop, every time they get some livestock, the Midianites will come and wipe them out. And so it took them from being one of the richest nations to being one of the most poverty-stricken nations at that time, with no identity, no voice, worshiping idol gods, just lost. And I found myself in situations where I was just lost. I really didn't know what to do. I really didn't know how to move forward. All I knew was this is the basics. I'm going to try to pray. I'm going to try to understand this Bible. Maybe I'll get it. Maybe I won't get it. I don't want to deal with those Christian folk. I don't want to deal with those church folk. I just want to get to know God myself. And it was more of an isolation than anything. And so we get this character in the Bible, Gideon, who just so happened to be a coward. The biggest coward in his family. And God comes to him, by an angel of the Lord and finds him threshing wheat in a wine press. And I find that so interesting because how many times have we been doing the right thing in an unusual place? We're just doing the right thing. We're trying to just thresh our wheat so that the enemy won't steal it. And we're just doing it in a wine press because this is the best place to do it because they're not looking for me here. They're not looking for me here. And I think about in that time where I was doing the right thing, I was trying to seek God, but I was just in an unusual place in my life. I was just in an unusual place. And God found him. He sent an angel of the Lord to him and spoke into his life. He spoke to who Gideon was. And it was unusual because, like I said, Gideon was afraid. He was a coward. He was, not this mighty man of valor that the angel of the Lord said that he was. And sometimes, in my experience, when God speaks to me, he speaks to me when I'm at, my lowest, where I feel like I'm not where I need to be and where my heart is just not in it. And he calls me who I am, not what I feel like I am, but who I truly am. He speaks truth into that situation, which brings me back to life every single time. So, the angel of the Lord calls Gideon this mighty man of valor. And, Gideon's like, I don't think you have the right person. I don't know what you're talking about. And, he goes on to say, I'm going to give you the Midianites in your hand. You're going to be a great warrior and you're going to demolish this army and this group of people that have had your people oppressed for year after year after year. I'm going to use you to do it. And sometimes, God will look at you in your situation and say, I'm going to call you to do great things in your family. It's going to be you. black sheep of the family to show my power and my glory. Or it's going to be you, the youngest child, to show my power and my glory. It's going to be you, the drug addict, that I'm going to turn around and make you a vessel for me to use to draw in other people. Just when you think that you're at your lowest, God is calling you and raising you up to be the man or woman of God that he ordained you to be from the very beginning. So, Gideon asked for these signs here and there, let me know if I'm on the right track, God, let me know if I'm doing the right thing. Am I in the right place? Because remember, he was in a wine press threshing wheat. So he kind of started out in an unusual place. And, a lot of people, when they talk about Gideon, they're like, oh, he didn't have any faith. And he was asking God, do this and I'll do that. And if you do this and I'll do that. But I kind of see it in a different way. I kind of see it like, okay, I'm unsure of myself in this situation. So I need you to show me exactly what I'm supposed to do. And I cannot move from this spot. My feet cannot move from this spot until you show me what my next step is going to be. And there is nothing wrong with being in that place. There's going to come a time where you have to step out on faith and walk by yourself. But while God is building you up, it's nothing wrong with you sitting down and saying, God, I need you to take me through this step by step by step until I can stand on my own. And, that's pretty much how, the story kind of went down, with Gideon. He started out just basically being afraid and not really living up to what God has called him to be, and to the end being this great warrior who's like, no, I don't want to be your king. Thank you for the opportunity, but that's not what I want to do. And so, when you ask God a question, or when God comes to you and speaks into your life, and you begin to ask God questions about who he is and how he's going to get you from one place to this place that he's shown you from the place that you are. God, how are you going to get me from this step to the next step? And that's okay to be in a place. But the first thing that you have to do is the first thing that Gideon did was tear down the altars of your fathers. And I don't mean like your literal fathers, but I had to tear down, God had to tear down the idols of what I thought I should be. So I thought I should be a wife. I thought I should be a mother. I thought I should stay at home. I thought I had no purpose outside of that. And he had to tear down, I had to go in and tear down all of those thoughts and tear down all of those other identities that I had, all of those extra identities that were out there. I had to tear them down. I had to tear down what people said about me. I had to tear down all those things to get to the bare necessity. Now, when you start tearing stuff down, people are going to kind of look at you like you're crazy. And so Gideon, he went at night. And sometimes you have to do it in the darkness. You might not have enough courage to do it while people are looking, but you still have to do it. So sometimes you have to take a step back, to move back, turn away, go be by yourself for a little while. Not isolation, because Gideon had people with him. He was not isolated. He still had people around him, but it was the right set of people. He went, took down the idols. They were trying to kill him. His father stepped up and said, hey, if your God has a problem with my son, let your God handle it, not you. So he kind of took that first step. And that's what we have to do. We have to take the first step and really tear down the idols of what we think our life should be, and open up our heart to what God is calling us to be and what God may have in store for you. And all the things that I wanted, I had to set those things aside in order to really be able to go forward in what God has for me to do. I had to take that first step. With that being said, I think this is a great point in time to take a break. Please check me out in episode 2, part 2 of While I Was Battling for My Identity, I Found My Purpose. Thank you so much for listening. Don't forget to rate and subscribe, and I will see you in our next episode.